Hi students, class 10th, English. Today another chapter, Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. Children, this is an autobiography of Nelson Mandela. What does autobiography mean? Autobiography means an account of a person written by himself or herself. And biography means when we write about somebody else. So first of all, we'll talk about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a moral and political leader, an internationally acclaimed hero whose contribution to fight against racial discrimination in South Africa won him the Nobel Peace Prize and the presidency of South Africa. When we have a sneak peek into this chapter, this is an abridged chapter, children, a shorter form of his autobiography. When we have a sneak peek into the chapter, we come to know about the pain, about the suffering Nelson Mandela and his people had to undergo during oppression, and how he spent his life in jail. This chapter, Nelson Mandela chapter, also talks about the black people not being given rights and responsibilities to share. They were always deprived of their rights and responsibilities. So this chapter, which is an extract from the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, starts with the 10th of May, children. 10th of May was a historic day for South Africa. Why? Because for the first time, the black president, that's Nelson Mandela, was being sworn in. And this program, this gathering was witnessed by thousands of people and was also attended by international personalities. There was a shift, there was a history which was created on the 10th of May by liberating the people of South Africa. This whole function took place at Pretoria, children. And Nelson Mandela was joined by his daughter, Xenia, and other deputy commanders, deputy people. This was for the first time a democratic government came into being. But children, Nelson Mandela, when we read his story, he says that it was not an easy thing. It was not a cake in the platter which was given to me. It was the hard work, it was the sacrifice of thousands of people who laid down their lives to liberate South Africa from racial discrimination. When he was sworn in, the military jets, the military aeroplanes displayed their military strength and they showed their allegiance, their loyalty to the democratic government. Nelson Mandela in his autobiography says, "These military generals who have come to salute me today were earlier responsible for imprisoning me in the jails." When he was addressing the gathering on 10th of May from Pretoria, he first of all thanked the people of South Africa. Then he said, "This I owe to all those people who gave their lives for the freedom of South Africa." And when he said this, after this, two national anthems were sung. One which was sung by the whites and the second by the blacks, which marked a change and overturn of a system of oppression to a system of democratic government. Nelson Mandela said that freedom, when he talks about his freedom in his autobiography and in this chapter, he says that freedom in his childhood meant running around in the fields, going to the river, spending nights out. And when he grew up, he thought freedom was when he earned livelihood for his family. But then he realized that this freedom, what he had thought of, envisaged in childhood or in the middle order of his life, was just an illusion, children. Why? Because his own brothers, his own sisters, that is his black people, were suffering for their rights, for their duties, for their privileges. So he took an oath that day that I will liberate my country from the oppressor as well as the oppressed. and he joined the African National Congress. While he was addressing the people from Pretoria, he said that a person needs to have twin obligation. Twin means two children. First, a man should have obligation, duty towards his family, and second, towards his community, towards his country. And he was trying to say that a person should balance between the two so that life runs very, very smoothly. Nelson Mandela is an internationally acclaimed personality, children, who did a lot of contribution, and he also worked with Mahatma Gandhi also. So when we read this extract, this chapter, we come to know the pain, the pathos the blacks had to undergo, because there was what we call apartheid, the racial discrimination. So he says that his duty, his responsibility, upholding the constitution which was created for the welfare, for the benefit of the South African people, was his duty. And he owed allegiance to the people of South Africa by liberating them, by making them free from poverty, from social discrimination, from indifference among people. Children, when we read into the annals, the pages of this autobiography, we come to know about his hardship, what he talked about, his independence, his liberation from the whites. He says that the people of South Africa had to live in fear, and courage was not given to them. They were not allowed to show that they also wanted to free themselves from the shackles of this apartheid. So he talks to his people and he says, courage means to come out of the fear. Courage does not mean to live under fear. When we come to the end of the chapter, we derive one important line from Nelson Mandela. I'll read out that to you. He says, patience and perseverance guided by discipline yields the desired results. So we need to have patience, we need to have perseverance if we are fighting for a cause which was in South Africa, that was of racial discrimination. So in this whole chapter he talks about how people lived a suppressed life, but when he won this freedom against the whites, how people started live a free life, a life where they had to express their rights, they had to exercise their duties, and they had to live with freedom. That's the end of the chapter, children. I'm coming to some of the important questions of this chapter. As I said, this is an autobiography, and this chapter, that is Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, is an extract from that. So first question coming to my mind, what promise did Mandela make in the beginning of his speech? As I said, he made the promise of freeing his people from poverty, from discrimination, and from racial segregation. Number second, what does he mean about twin obligation? Twin, as I said, means two children. Twin obligation, he says, a man should perform two duties, two obligations. One, for his family. Number two, for his country and for his community. Because when he balances the two, he is able to yield the desired result. Number third, what does freedom mean to Nelson Mandela? Freedom, as I said, in his early childhood, it meant running around, staying out for the nights. But when he grew up, he wanted freedom to earn livelihood for his family. But then he realized it was an illusion, as I said, because his people, his brethren, were suffering from the oppression from the whites, and they had no rights, they had no duties. So he thought freedom means when a person is able to enjoy his rights, his duties, and they have a moral obligation towards each other. There is no hatred among men. Men are not born to hate each other, but love should be between human beings so that a nation flourishes, a community flourishes. That's the end of the children chapter. I hope you've understood the chapter. Thank you, and that's all for today.